Compound interest. Interest is said to be compounding if each time the interest is calculated, it is added to the principal. Our compound interest formula is A equals P times the quantity, 1 plus R over N, all raised to the NT. Does look a little ugly. It's not impossible to do. You can do it in a calculator in one step, although it can be a little scary. A is the amount accumulated, the ending balance. P is the principal, or the beginning balance. R is the interest rate. Again, that's as a decimal, and typically it's annual. N is the number of compoundings per year. And T is the time in years. Let's do a little practice. Compute the account balance and the amount of interest earned if $7,500 is invested for 5 years at 1.6% compounded quarterly. Let's bring up our little formula. Looks like we need to know what the principal is, and in this case $7,500 is invested, so $7,500 will be our principal. We need an R. R is our rate, and it says 1.6%. We'll convert that to a decimal. Gives us 0.016, and I'll put my leading zero out there. And let's see, N, how many times a year is this done? Quarterly means 4 times a year, so N would be 4. And T is our time, and they tell us it's 5 years. So we get the formula. The amount accrued, or the ending balance, is going to be 7,500 times the quantity, 1 plus 0.016 divided by 4, all raised to the 4 times 5. Now if you're going to try to do this all in one step in your calculator, be sure to put parentheses around the 4 times 5, otherwise it won't work right. This is a real good time to either see what I get and then pause it and see if you can duplicate it, or go ahead and pause the show, see what you get, and make sure we match. If you're not going to use a complicated calculator, if you have a simple calculator, what I would suggest is you start with the innermost and work your way out. So take 0.016 divided by 4 equals. And then say plus 1 equals. And then say raised to, and on most calculators the raised to button will be like x to the y or y to the x, or on the TIs you typically have this caret, which means raised to the 4 times 5 is 20. That number you have will be a 1 and a bunch of decimals. Then we'll multiply that number by the 7,500, and we get A is about 4,000. I'm sorry, looking at the next problem. A is about 8,123.36. So that's what will be in the account after the 5 years. Now we're also asked to figure out the amount of interest. Unlike the simple interest formula where the N tells you what the interest is, with the compounding formula it doesn't tell you the interest straight out, it tells you the ending balance. So to find the interest, we'll take our ending balance 8123.36. We'll subtract the amount we invested, 7,500, and that gives us the amount of interest we earned, which is 623.36. Alright, let's try another one. Compute the account balance and the amount of interest earned if $4,000 is invested for 2 years at 6% compounded monthly. So again, principal this case is 4,000. The rate is 6% or 0.06. The number of times per year, monthly, is 12 times per year, and the number of years is 2 years. And when we put all this together, A equals 4,000 times the quantity, 1 plus 0.06 over 12, all raised to the 12 times 2. Again, if you're doing this in a calculator a step at a time, 0.06 divided by 12 equals, plus 1 equals, raised to the 24th equals. And that's the amount, which later I called this the glob, that's the amount we're going to multiply by 4,000 to figure out the amount accrued. And your total account balance at the end of those 2 years is $4,508.64. Now if you're off by a few pennies, that can be a rounding error, that's not a problem. If you're off by 15, 20 cents or even $1, check to see, make sure you don't do any rounding before you get to the very end. At the very end, then you can round. Again, if this is the account balance, to find the amount of interest, we would just do the subtraction. And when we subtract 4,000 from 4560 or 4508.64, we get that the interest is $508.64. Not a bad investment. Now, there are bankers' rules and United States rules, things like that, that we're not going to get into, but one thing to note for you is that according to the bankers' rule, there are 360 days in a year, or at least that's what we use for daily compounding. And so when you're working on your homework, the book is going to base compounding on 360 for our N. Compute the account balance and the amount of interest earned if 8,500 is invested for 3 years at 5% compounded daily. So we get 1 plus our rate divided by the number of times per year, all raised to the number of times per year times the number of years. And again, if we punch this in our calculator, 0.05 divided by 360 equals, plus 1 equals, raised to the, you might want to do this math somewhere else or use parentheses. And when you get all of that and multiply it by 8,500, I get 9,875.49. And if you subtract off the original investment, this is the account balance or the amount accrued, we get that the interest is $1,300.64. 75 cents. I'm sorry, $1,375.49.